Welcome to our video on the topic of the Cold War. On our channel, History Explorer. The Cold War was a global struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union that lasted over 4 decades. From the end of World War II in 1945 until the early 1990s, it was a time of tension, espionage, and nuclear brinkmanship. But it wasn't just about the two superpowers. It affected countries and people all over the world. In this video, we will delve into the background, key events, impact, and the legacy of the Cold War. Background. Origins of Cold War. The origins of the Cold War can be traced back to the end of World War II, when the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the world's two dominant powers. The United States, a capitalist democracy, and the Soviet Union, a communist state, had fundamentally different ideologies and visions for the post-war world. This led to competitions for global influence known as the Cold War. The main cause of the Cold War was the intense rivalry between the capitalist and communist ideologies. Ideological differences. The United States and the Soviet Union had vastly different ideologies that defined their political systems and the way they viewed the world. The United States was a capitalist democracy, while the Soviet Union was a communist state. These different ideologies led to a fundamental divide between the two countries and ultimately fueled the Cold War. The United States was committed to spreading democracy and capitalism, while the Soviet Union was committed to spreading communism. Competitions for global influence. The United States and the Soviet Union competed for influence in countries around the world, often leading to proxy wars and civil unrest. This competition for global influence was a major driving force behind the Cold War. The two superpowers were in constant competitions to spread their ideologies and gain allies in different parts of the world. Key events. Cuban Missile Crisis. One of the key events of the Cold War was the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. The Soviet Union had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. This posed a direct threat to the United States and brought the world closer to nuclear war than ever before. President John F. Kennedy issued a naval blockade of Cuba and demanded that the Soviet Union remove the missiles. After a tense standoff, the Soviet Union eventually agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for a U.S. promise not to invade Cuba and the removal of U.S. missiles from Turkey. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a turning point in the Cold War as it brought the world closest to a nuclear war. The fall of the Berlin Wall. Another major event of the Cold War was the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. The Berlin Wall was built by the Soviet-controlled East German government, had separated East and West Berlin since 1961. The wall was a symbol of the divide between the capitalist West and the communist East. In 1989, a series of protests and uprisings in Eastern Europe led to the eventual fall of the wall and the reunifications of Germany. This event marked the beginning of the Cold War. The fall of the Berlin Wall was a significant event that symbolized the end of the Cold War and the fall of communism in Eastern Europe. Impact. Outside the superpowers. The Cold War had a significant impact on countries and people outside of the United States and Soviet Union. The United States and Soviet Union competed for influence in countries around the world, often leading to proxy wars and civil unrests. Many countries had to choose sides between the US and the Soviet Union, which led to division and conflict. The Cold War also led to a rise in authoritarian regimes in developing countries as they aligned with either the US or Soviet Union. Arms race and nuclear buildup. The Cold War also led to an arms race and a nuclear arms buildup, which created a constant fear of nuclear war. Both the United States and Soviet Union developed and stockpiled nuclear weapons, leading to a dangerous arms race. This arms race led to a constant fear of nuclear war, as both countries were capable of launching a devastating nuclear attack. Legacy of the Cold War. The Cold War had a lasting impact on the world, and its legacy can still be felt today. The Cold War shaped international relations, global politics, and the world as we know it today. It led to the rise of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, and the divisions of the world into capitalist and communist spheres of influence. The Cold War also led to the rise of authoritarian regimes, proxy wars, and civil unrest in developing countries.